It is Friday, 10th of October, and you're listening to This Week in Events. The team this week features Christina O'Connell
Good morning.
and Mr. Paul Richardson.
Good morning.
So, how have you been, guys? How's your week been?
All good here, bit chaotic. Still plowing through award entries and product launches, award entries. It's very hectic, but all good.
Do the award entries ever stop? I mean, is there a point where you can go, right, we're done with those now?
Seemingly not. Doesn't feel like it from this end.
Okay. Well. And Christina, how have you been?
I'm very good. A good week, a calm week, a productive week. It's been good.
Excellent news. Cool. So we'll head into some of the news items that we're going to talk about. There are important questions like, are there too many industry events going on? We're going to talk about trainee programs that may address the event industry talent shortage. And I have a shameless plug for a charity walk I'm involved with. It's my podcast. I can say what I want. So let's start with both planners and suppliers agree there are too many industry events, and this is on the Skiff Meetings blog. And it was actually suggested by Jill Hawkins, our sometimes co-host, team member.
We love Jill.
I suspect this is a cunning plan on Jill's part, that she throws this piece of raw meat into the discussion, and we criticise that there are too many invites, too many meetings, don't get invited to them, but Jill's safe because she didn't say anything. So thanks for this one, Jill. We'll remember this. Skiff bring this up, but I think we talked about this a while ago. It's bewildering if you're in and around the events industry, even if you look in the last couple of days, how many, there's just two events that have collided. You've had IMEX, and then you've had the Access All Areas Leaders Summit. Two events that's sitting directly on top of each other. Which one do you go to? Which one has the greater weight? Which one has the greater bearing? And if the organizer of these events looked at a calendar and put them in a linear fashion, I may never see my desk from one Christmas to the next, because I would just be bouncing from event to event. There comes a point at which it isn't economically viable to attend all of these events and do the job that you're supposed to be doing back at the office.
But not only that, don't forget there's the IMEX is Las Vegas. You've got, and then if you want to do a UK show like the Access All Areas, then you have to be back in the UK. And there's IBTM coming up in Spain. There's an awful lot of traveling. There's an awful lot of complicated traveling going on. So trying to attend all of these, it's not just how many events can I possibly do in a year, but it's all the travel that goes around it and the amount of time you've got team members out of the office.
Yeah. How many people can you spare?
And they'll be generating leads, hopefully, in conversations which need to be followed up. Could you, if you've got a small team that's traveling around different continents, I mean, are they going to have chance to follow up everything? Can't be easy. What do you think, Christina?
Yeah, I definitely have always, like in the past, there have been like so many events, especially I think November. November always was a really busy month. And it was like, always would say, wouldn't it be great if these events were spread out a little bit, because it was really the case of going to one event and that evening getting on a train and going somewhere else for another event, and then being there for 3 days as conferences, and then another event, and you just always think like, man, it would be cool if these event organizers would like have some sort of chat and be like, let's not put like all of the events in the same month or same week. I don't know if that's possible for them to communicate somehow and spread out the events across the year, because I think there's...
Are there calendars that people could look at? I mean,
It's just so many things. And you're right. How can you, I mean, go to a conference, okay, you know, you're gonna be exhausted if you've got three back-to-back conferences or events, or there are two really important events on the same day. Like, what do you do? And then as well, like you're saying, Paul, like you're not in the office for like a week. Who's going to do that work? Who's going to catch up on that work? It's yeah, sometimes I feel like it is a little bit problematic because you have to make sacrifices. Either you don't go to your favorite event and lose some sort of work that connections or something that you could have done at the event, or you lose a day's work. So sacrifices have to be made.
Well, also there's the case that if you've just gone to a really important conference and you've absorbed a whole ton of new information, but will you do anything with it and will you remember it? Because by the end of the last day of the conference, you're not thinking about the people you've met, the work you've volunteered or said you'll do, and you've got leads to follow up. You're thinking, right, so if I can get to the station or the airport, I'll need to book a taxi and I'll need to get to the. You're so preoccupied with what's coming next. You're not really dealing with what you're now doing.
Yeah, it's true.
That's a very good point, Bob. The other thing I would say is we don't attend many events, and I don't, because our clients are expecting to do work for them. So we're being paid by them for a number of hours to perform certain tasks to deliver certain results. If they see my face at every event, oh, and he's attending this one, he's speaking at that one, he's on the panel for this one, he's here, he's there, he's every. Are we paying for him to go to all these jaunts? The answer is yes, obviously, because the only revenue stream we have is our clients. So our clients are paying for me to jolly off around the world and go to all these events and sit on panels and be the great I am. That's not what they want. What they want is what we've agreed to supply for them. So there's an element there that it compromises that as well, because I think as Christina said, is when you look at it, you go, I need to go to that because that's appropriate to, and the content's appropriate to my market, my clients. So I need to be abreast of what's going on. Oh, there's another one sitting on top of it or adjacent to it. If I go to the first one and I gather all my notes and then go to the second one and then come back to the office, I've then got however much work has accrued in the background whilst I've been away to perform those tasks for the clients. But also then I've got to try and assimilate all of that good stuff that I've listened for the clients. Now, I'll hold my hand up. I may not be the sharpest knife in the drawer on this, but I'd love to meet somebody who can do all of that and maintain quality of output, hitting deadlines and efficiency, and keep their sanity, because it's going to be absolutely exhausting. I don't know. I just think maybe it certainly seems to be since the pandemic. I think we had a proliferation of events that moved virtual and hybrid. So I don't need to go to London. I'll log into the streaming event. I'll listen to that piece of content I want to listen to, and then I'll click off. But that doesn't generate revenue. It doesn't generate footfall. It doesn't do all of those things, which an event organizer might want to monetize. But events kind of went boom in this big splurge just after the pandemic. And I don't think we've been discerning enough as attendees to say, not going to that one, not going to that one, and letting these events fizzle and die through lack of attend. So it becomes a proper ecosystem where the good ones, where everybody benefits, get better, stronger, bigger, and the other ones go by the wayside, or they stay very niche and tight for a particular market. There we go. So endeth the lesson from Paul.
I'm just thinking that if you are bouncing from continent to continent, from show to show, you're going from one end of the country to another. Surely, if the event's got a really good hybrid element to it, where you can attend on a virtual basis, especially if it's a conference where you want to watch the content, and that conference has actually recorded what the speakers and the presentations are all about, because not all of them do, then surely that would help with attendance, because you could have online attendance as well as in-person attendance.
I'll pitch in first, if I may. I think that's fine. However, I can only speak for myself, my experience. On-demand content, I'm not the greatest at following up on. I have the best intentions. I download, I put the links into a folder and on a document and think that I'll watch that Sunday morning. Sunday morning comes around and the dog needs walking, and then I've got to take the car to go down to the dump some stuff at the tip and blah blah. And then sit down at tea time on Sunday. Oh, I never watched that. Oh, hang on, I've got to prep for Monday. Oh, right, it's Monday now. I'm into the work week, and through nothing willful, they get left and drift by. It might be that there's a QA-ish system operating in my head there, that if it's really important, I will find time to watch it. But that does filter it down to a very small amount of post-event content that I'll look at. I may be different to other people. Other people may consume it avidly. And I suppose if you're trapped on an aeroplane flying to Madrid to go to an event, and then you're on a train over to Barcelona for something else, you may have the opportunity to sit and watch this kind of stuff. But it does make it relentlessly day in, day out. You're going to an event, you're then watching an event, then you go to another event, then you're watching more event. It comes back to that same thing. When do you process it? When do you deliver what you're supposed to be delivering for your client? Or are you a professional meeting attendee or event attendee? Is there a strata that we've missed? I mean, who are these mysterious people that float around the industry?
Well, they're called professional speakers, and they go to each event, staying on a stage, which they've probably paid to do, and just spreading their good word. Probably. Any thoughts, Christina?
I mean, it's true what you said, Paul. There's many times where I went to sometimes conferences or trade shows, they can be overwhelming. And especially when you go to a big one. I went to a really big one in Spain, and it was just so many sessions, like so many theaters, so many things, and you have to also make a decision while you're there. And I remember I was like, I've got a great hack. And so I would just like put my phone and like record some of the sessions, and then I checked, and I can still hear what people are talking. Oh, I can go back to the office and I can annotate it and I can write stories on it and all of this stuff. But somewhere along the line, there's too much content in your head, and there's too much content like recorded, and you just don't even have enough time to put it together into some content. So it's just like sometimes you're just overwhelmed with the content, and you need to kind of be able to like choose which stuff is like the best out of the event. So I would just say that it can be very overwhelming going back to the content. And imagine if I'm going to 5 trade shows or events in 1 week, then that likelihood of me going back and going through the content is going to take up way more time. So maybe you do need to be selective with what is the best content out there.
Yeah, again, it all depends on whether any of the sessions are recorded. Do the speakers are they videoed? Is it all set up so you can watch it at your leisure? It's something we could actually probably talk endlessly about, because that's another contentious issue. Are there too many sessions? Because it can be overwhelming. Is any of it recorded anyway, so you can watch it at your leisure? Yeah. So basically, it's saying that. Oh, sorry, Paul. Carry on.
No, and I was just going to agree with you. It's because the overlapping of, we talked about the overlapping of events on the same day, but you go to a conference, and I mean, again, look at the likes of the meeting show, which I think is a really good event. It's got a load of good content. It's a load of good content, and some of it's happening at the same time. So I want to go to this theatre to listen to this. I want to go to that theatre to listen to that. I want to look at that on the main stage. But they all kind of sit and overlap a little bit, or they sit right on top of each other. And as you said, Bob, some of it might be recorded, some of it might not. So that we had this at this last meeting show. 2 of us were down at the show. And Bethany and I, when we're going down on the train, just planning out, right, just cross-referencing. And we both identified 3 things that we wanted to see, having discounted overlapping events, and we were both in the same 3 seminars. And we sat down and said, well, shall we split? Because that's, the intelligent thing is you go that way, and brief. We'll exchange notes. And then we had one of those realism moments where you go, are we going to do this? Are we going to actually write up some notes and share them with each other? Because when we get back to the office, it'll be hell for leather getting the day job done. which I didn't know. So we ended up both going to the 3 sessions, which were great. But it's those things that you might do to participate. I'd love to know how many of them actually get done. We work with a couple of companies who do streaming stuff, and they post some really good stats in terms of what people have done after the event. But that event, the one that I'm thinking of that performs incredibly well, is so vertically integrated into a market that it's a narrow band of people. It's a professional group in a certain area. So they see that as their natural resource. If we're talking about events for events people, there's a gazillion of the blooming things. This is specifically to a particular niche in a market. And there's not very little else around it for that market to engage with. So it has an audience that will download content. So the streaming event and the post-event downloads are very, very high, very good.
Would it actually help with the overwhelm? So if we've got far too many events, do we need bigger events that cover more so you don't have as many events? Like the meeting show will do hospitality, hotels everywhere, venues everywhere, event techs to some degree, and a lot of other, people providing sort of like entertainment things and cocktail bars and food. It covers an awful lot of the different sectors within the event industry. 2 day show. So if you have any particular, if you're looking for a solution, you go to a show that seems to have everything. So is that the way we should go? Or, and obviously with that, it could be quite overwhelming because everything you've ever wanted is going to be there. So many people to talk to, 2,000 or 3,000 attendees per day. It could be quite a lot. Or do we need a lot more shows that maybe are only for a day, but on really niche areas and sectors?
I think it's the latter because I think about a trade show, you're saying one big one where it's everything there. I think for me, that would be even more overwhelming because if you think about the last trade show you've been to, did you have enough time over the 2 or 3 days to go and talk to everybody you wanted to talk to go and see every sort of exhibitor or every kind of area? Because I know when I, last have gone to one, I never achieve all the things I want to achieve. I never have enough time to do all the things I want to do. Sometimes I don't even have time to have lunch. Like I'm just running around like a headless chicken. And so for me, it would be too overwhelming. I think it's the latter, to have smaller shows and maybe more specialist or maybe more narrowed down to venues or something like that. For me, I think maybe it might be different for every person, just because it'll give me the space and the time to really kind of get my head like, okay, I'm here for venues and I can go to talk to everyone and I can go and have lunch calmly, get some energy and go back in there and talk to the other people or see the other things. Because it makes me the most sad is when I don't have time to go see amazing exhibitors or talk to all the people, and then it might be the case that you won't see those people for another 6 months because they live in different places and it's the only time that they travel into London, for example. So maybe if there were more opportunities for those people to meet and it would be smaller, more specialist kind of areas, then for me, that would be better.
But it will also help you pick and choose. Instead of going to lots of big events that do everything, you could actually have lots of niche ones. You could say, well, I'll do those 2 this month, and then the following month there's only one more that I need to attend, instead of having to go to the US, and then on to Spain, and then on to Frankfurt, and then on to all over different continents around the world. Anything else you want to come up with, Paul, to finish off?
Yeah, no, I think Christine's hit a nail on the head there. And the more I think about it, and the more I look back over my experience of 2 million years in and around the events industry, the events that have been really successful are focused and haven't been. The bigger they get, the more focus they lose. It's almost as if they get to a size where then shouldn't part of that show spin off to be a smaller show about a discrete part of whatever it is that they're exhibiting? I pick on a good example would be Event Tech Live. We've been going to Event Tech Live as an exhibitor, a visitor, helping them out since it was in the old Truman Brewery about 10, 12 years ago. And they've stayed pretty true to their core. They had a brief dalliance with bringing sustainability in, but that went because it wasn't successful, because it was seen as a tech show rather than a sustainability show. So it's back at its roots with Event Tech this year, and it means it's quite vertically integrated, quite neat. You know who you're going to see, you know who's going to be in the room, you know what the content's going to be about, you know what the speaker session's going to be about, and it's in that bubble of Event Tech. And then you look at some of the other shows, there's things like the Vet Show, that's specifically around veterinary medicine, and it's targeting a particular audience, so it's speakers around that. It's keeping things quite tight. And I know that the veterinary show is quite big, isn't it? Because it's a multi-million pound industry, million pounds of industry. But those shows have got quite niche appeal, so they bring a particular people in for that, and they tend to be an annual event. Because I'm just thinking about, if you think about the events industry, we have so many. We've got International Confex, we've got the Meeting Show, we've got Event Tech Live, you've got the Showman Show, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, and then layered on top of that, you've got lots of meetings and conferences about the events industry. So on top of that, you've got the trade associations, of which there are quite a lot in the broad spectrum of events, and they've all got their own events program that sit in amongst that. So it starts to become an incredibly blurred landscape. I think Christine's got a point, and maybe we're going through a point of evolution where some of these might just fade away because there isn't enough time and budget to support them all.
Well, the thing is, there's always that there's always those loud voices saying, "Oh, you've got to grow, you've got to scale up." But what happens if a particular show, I mean, if Event Tech Live is not doing sustainability live, that means it's probably going to be in a smaller hall, where it will feel like, oh my God, it's got smaller. What's going on? What's wrong? But it's nothing wrong. It's just they're now focusing. I think there's one show I went to where it was smaller. It didn't occupy as much space, but then all of a sudden you felt that community feel, that everybody was there in a smaller space, so it felt like a small village as opposed to a big city. Big cities, people get lost. Small villages, people talk.
Exactly, and they connect. And I was just going to say, like, back also like on the idea of having smaller shows, smaller events, is that there's an aspect of in being like intentional. There's intent behind it. Like, okay, I think those tighter shows, those smaller shows, you could see that everything is placed kind of strategically in a way, and it's like, okay, well, there's a lot of intention behind it, rather than like having a bigger show. I might be wrong, but I feel like there's a sense of, we'll just book anyone in to fill a space because we've got this hall, and it doesn't really matter if they're this or that. Like, let's just book it in, let's get as many exhibitors in there as possible. Maybe they're relevant, maybe they're not, but I feel like with smaller show, you feel like there's a real intention behind it. You're being intentional. We need this for these people, we need that for those people, and you see like it's like a tighter kind of event. I don't know, I might be wrong.
No, I think you're right, because if you're going to go to a niche conference meeting or a show where it's only about one thing, you're going to attract people who want a solution that it's going to be there. So all you got to do is just walk around the bunch of people that you're really interested in. If you're going to go to a show that does everything, that has all the different sectors of the event industry, well, you're going to get sidetracked by all the bright and shiny. You're going to get lost, and you may never find your way back to that stand that you were really interested in.
Exactly.
Your feet are going to hurt, and all you want to do is go home.
And it will take you, you'll have to walk a kilometer to find that thing that you're looking for, that thing you came for. And then you give up. You're like, well, I can't find it. Oh, well, I mean, I don't know what to do. I'm lost. I can't find it. So I'm not going to get anything out of the show. Whereas a smaller show, you're like, oh, those people I want to see, they're there. Those people are there. I can see it. There's a coffee cart. There are the bathrooms. I've got a clear path.
Oh, yes. Oh, we can get back to talking about toilets again. That's always good fun. Toilets and biscuits we should talk about.
It's. I think Christina's made a really good point there, because if you go back to the old sales motto that people buy from people, if your event is about gaining new customers or selling product or service in any description, a smaller, more intimate event when you get to know people and trust them, that's when sales happen. That's when deals are made, contracts are signed, is because you've met somebody, you've developed a relationship, you feel a closeness and a proximity to them. And for a lot of businesses that don't supply a commodity product where everything's obviously based on price, anything that requires any kind of consultative sell, being part of that ecosystem makes it an easier atmosphere in which to do business, because you've built up that knowledge, that faith, that trust in people, that relationship, and you can see how other people behave around those people. So you gauge, I know these three people say this person's a good person, so I'll engage with them because they say they're a good person. So then it becomes a virtuous circle. So it does kind of extend things. I really like that model. Exhibition organisers, listen to this.
Yeah.
Words of wisdom.
Yes, and please do get in touch and tell us what their point of view. It'd be good to have them on to share their point of view. I'm so glad you're here, Christina. You keep coming up with these amazing points, and we can talk for hours about just the one news story when we've got other ones to talk about.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I'm gonna now do a shameless plug.
Go for it.
Please. So yeah, I'm just gonna do it. Okay, it's my podcast. I can do what I like.
Yeah.
So on the 19th of October is the Walk for Wellbeing for Hospitality Action. Well, it's the events start, I believe, on the 19th. I'm going to be walking around Battersea Park. It's 20 kilometers, so that equals to about 7 laps on a bright and early Sunday morning. Important fundraiser. I would like any listener to consider supporting. I'll put the link to my sponsor page in the show notes. We've talked about in the past about well-being and hospitality. I've done a great episode with Jeremy Gibson, let's get the name right. Hospitality Action. We went through their recent report. So yeah, shameless plug. Please come and support me to do 7 laps of Battersea Park. Not quite sure how we're going to get there yet, but yes, please come and help. Anyway, shameless plug over and done with. So what's next, Christina or Paul? Who's going to go next?
I'll go next, I think.
Okie dokie.
Amazing. Well, first of all, it's really good to be back. And so my story this week is about ATPI, which is a business and travel and events management company, and they've launched the second intake of its trainee program, bringing 6 new recruits into its Suffolk office. Did I pronounce Suffolk correctly?
I am from Suffolk. I was born in Suffolk, so yes, you did that well. Thank you very much.
Okay. So a scheme offers 4 weeks in-house training, followed by 5 months on the job learning with a dedicated mentor. So again, I think it's shining a light again on more like mentorship for the events industry and getting people educated on the events industry. And I think especially young people, getting them into the industry, getting more people to know about the events industry and that it's an option, because for a long time before I had entered the events industry, I had no idea about this whole sector. So I think it's really shining a light on that. So it's a really positive one, I think, and especially for young people, like I said before.
It's good timing as well, because last episode we talked about the Power Events and their launch of their London School Engagement Program. So it's good to see that there's work being done for training. I know, Paul, you're big on apprenticeships, getting young people in and give them chance to learn and take part and bring their skills and ideas into the industry. It's always good.
Again, I think as Christina said, the lack of awareness. There's been quite a lot of work, and there's lots of things happening in the background. I've been involved in the what was the British Exhibition Contractors Association that eventually became ESSA, way back when. Did outreach to universities to go and talk to creators and design undergrads to talk about bringing their design skills into the exhibitions industry, so into exhibitions and trade shows. And I don't think the events industry per se as a whole can step back and say job done. It's got to be a continual program and process. What would again be nice, and we've touched on this, is kind of duplication of effort so many times across the industry in so many different ways, multiple associations, multiple events. We've covered this off in the first piece, but this is the same kind of thing. Multiple people trying to reach out into education. And I'm not suggesting there should be just the one way of doing it, but perhaps there should be a little bit of coordination, a bit more coordination, that people say, no, if you're doing this, we'll either come and help you. So let's get on board with your program. Or if you're going to tackle that bit, we'll tackle this bit and coordinate the effort together so that the industry as a whole moves forward. It's probably the opposite to the live events bit about having niche events is maybe the events industry as a whole needs to move into talk to that event sector. But yes, we are very much and very big into apprentices, and I have just had an email from our latest apprentice who joins us on Monday. So that's all exciting stuff.
Woohoo!
So yes,
Sounds it. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely into training young people, getting them into the industry, giving them the exposure and the experience that they need.
Yeah, I know your views on actually, if you've listened to last episode, everybody should know your views on apprenticeship, and good views they are. You did talk at length. So that's really good. You did talk at length, and it was good.
Thanks, Bob.
It's almost to a point where I could have turned it into an episode by itself. So when we talk about coordination, I mean, are we talking like it has to be top down, doesn't it? There has to be some overarching entity that would receive information, not just, coordinating when events happen, but also all the educational programs. So would that be government led, or does it need, the industry needs to come together and finally say, we need to have an overarching entity, organization that will make sure we're all going in the right direction? And would it happen this decade?
It's a really good
Very
question.
good question.
Yeah, very good question.
Great question, but perhaps not an answer then, because it's all gone quiet. Well, you've got a lot of different organisations doing their Spartacus moment. Now, I'm the voice of the event industry, and we've talked about that. I've talked about that in previous episodes. But you do feel that there should be some top-down organisation, whether it's government-led or not, just putting everybody into order and making sure we're all walking in the same direction.
But how can that be? How can they do that?
Well, would it be like newspapers? Unless you have your own voluntary code that you go by, the government will impose one?
I think it's amazing. I think it's great that people are doing these programs, these mentorship, and getting people just interested in the events industry. But I also think that there needs to be just more education in general to tell, like maybe in schools. Not necessarily like an events. I know we've talked about events management programs, like those. I think those are for people who want to be in events. But what about like into the curriculum somehow, where they understand that events is a sector to work in just as much as being a lawyer, being a doctor, working in finance, being an English teacher, like myself. Like I had never heard in my schooling education that anything about the events industry, people organizing events or conferences, like it never occurred to me or us, my classmates. So I think maybe a solution is to introduce it into like a schooling's curriculum in just an introductory way.
Well, that's what power events are doing, but obviously they need, I believe at the moment their ambassadors are volunteers who see the value in the mission. And there's also connections with universities offering event management courses. So I think there is that path.
But we need to start it earlier.
Maybe. So
Earlier, and just an introduction. It doesn't have to be like volunteers going and speaking. It just needs to be a chapter in a book or a chapter in some sort of semester where we're just going to look at this.
Or we can ask 12-year-olds to organise their own birthday parties.
Exactly.
That's fun.
But there is Bob. What you say there has got some ring of potential there in terms of when you get kids organising events and plays and school productions and things like that. At what point does anybody ever say to them, "You could have a job doing this"? There is a career path. I can remember we used to. We used to do Gilbert and Sullivan operettas. Boring as hell. Well, I went to a rough comprehensive school in a steel and mining town, and we used to do Gilbert and Sullivan operettas. You can imagine how well attended they were. But there you'd got people who were interested in doing the lighting, some people who were doing the stage design, you got people who wanted to do stage management, you obviously got the thesps who wanted to go on stage, and all the attention was focused on the people on the stage. Oh, you could be an actor, you could be this, you could be that. Nobody turned around and said, that sound mixing you've been doing, that's really good. You could go and be a sound tech in a job. This could be a career path for you. Or you could be a lighting technician, or you could be a lighting designer. You could go, sky's the limit. That's never put in front, or it certainly wasn't, and it wasn't when my two lads were at school. Nobody ever considered that as a potential career path.
No, it's if you notice that when you are good at sports when you're very young, he'd be really good at rugby or football or running. You identified at an early age that you could potentially be really good at sport. Don't forget, snooker players now start age of 5. Well, that's what it seems like anyway. And you've got table tennis starts also at a very early age, where you identify as having the beginnings of talent. But when you start reading about the stories, and I've got quite a few on the Event Planning News Journal, or founder stories, when they suddenly, it's only when they're adults do they realize, looking back, that doing events, organizing, DJing, organizing birthday parties, stuff for family, doing things in the local hall, that they look back and go, oh, it seems like I was interested in events. It's only on reflection do they discover that was a thing. They could put a name to that interest. So instead of having schools and education in general identifying young people with talents to do theatre, sport, whatever, event industry seems to be only something you look back on and suddenly realise, yeah, that was probably what I was always interested in all along.
Yeah, that's really good point, Bob. But something else came into my mind, and it's like, I think the only kind of event management or like events industry job that I ever thought about would be like being like an event, like a party planner, like a wedding planner. And I always think like, oh, just people, I think, like they kind of assume that if you're in events, it's like, oh, you're just planning parties or something. And I don't know, but in the past, it's not like people look at it like, wow. They're just like, oh, you're just event planner or party planner. And I think, again, people don't know enough to be able to say or know and be like, oh, actually, this is a possibility. And back to your point as well, it's like all I've ever heard is people say, oh, I fell into events. I fell into events.
Oh, that's such a common phrase, isn't it?
Such a common phrase. I've really rarely heard, well, I chose it at high school and I wanted to do it for ages, and I went to uni and I did it and I got my first job in events and I'm so excited. I know maybe one person. The other people go, I fell into it. I fell into it. And I think if we fix it again and go back to like primary school, high school, then we'll have less people saying I fell into it, and you'll have more people saying I studied it, I have a passion for it. I knew about it since 16 or something.
See, that's why I think the power of events could actually do some really good work by not just engaging with young students, but also engaging with the career advisors, because they're the ones who I don't
Yeah,
know. Well, when I was in education, at the beginning of time, um, there were, you sit with your career advisors and say, well, we've been looking through your schoolwork and we
yeah,
reckon you'd be really good at running a till in a supermarket or something. It's always these bulk standard, unimaginative jobs that they would suggest.
yeah,
But if we can start, or say if the industry can start sharing more with the educational side and say, well, actually, there's 17 different categories and each one's broken into another 20 subcategories. These are all the wonderful jobs. It's not just planning a wedding, planning a birthday
yeah.
party.
There's
There's
more
so
to
much.
events.
I mean,
Yeah.
just just look at the AV side of things.
Mhm.
There's so many interesting opportunities just under audio video. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, it's true, and I think we just have to push this whole idea as well. Like, the events industry is bigger than weddings. The events industry is bigger than planning a party. Because I feel like some people really do just think, oh, so you like plan like weddings or parties or whatever. I think that they need to realize that it's concert, it's live events, it's conferences, it's exhibition, it's trade. Like, it's so much bigger than people realize, and we need to break through in that kind of way, the way people communicate or talk about the events industry or the way they perceive it.
it is about time the industry actually grabbed hold and made it their own. All the words
Mm,
and terminology and all the thoughts and ideas that are going there. As you say, it's going to be more than, oh, you're an event, so I take it you plan weddings.
mm,
It's up to us
It's
to change the view.
yeah, it's interesting you suggest the power of events could do the outreach. There's again looking at the number of trade associations, groups, how many people speak for the events industry. You could fill a small auditorium with the people who are running organizations that are supposedly representing the views of events, and that's unconsolidated groups, it's trade associations, it's professional bodies. There's a plethora of them. They kind of need to stop, and little air quotes here, competing with each other and thinking about how they can, our membership needs to be bigger than theirs. How can we defend our bit of space and come together? Because the pandemic should have shown them that collectively there's power in the collective voice, and to get together and say, right, how do we open up young people's eyes to the breadth of jobs? So if you think, as we just said, okay, let's stick events and let's think parties and weddings way over on one end, and then you've got other things at the other end where you've got things like the Women's Rugby World Cup. Sporting events has been huge in the UK over the last few weeks. That's a scale of events. And you swing it the other way. We worked on an event called Plantworks that had a 240-acre outdoor exhibition. So you got diggers and kit, and they were digging the place up, and they got machinery driving around. And then it flips over to Hillhead, which is a quarry just down the road here. And you've got a massive hole in the ground, huge quarry, and they fill it with an exhibition with kit and plant and moving stuff. So if you're into logistics, how do you get, I don't know, a couple of 100 tons of digger down into the bottom of that quarry to demonstrate to visitors how that works? It's so varied. It is so diverse in terms of the roles and the aspects you can do. We kind of need to get that. The organizations need to come together and say, rather than pushing our little bit, so conferences, live events, festivals, is here's the lot, kids. When you're coming through school and you're having those conversations, you've got to be a lawyer, you've got to be a fireman, you could join the police, blah, blah, blah. Go work in events. What does that mean? Well, this whoosh, here's a complete layout on the table of everything you can do. It's a huge ecosystem. It's colossal.
Basically, the job description for doing a 200 person in a small room with a couple of chairs at a table and a few exhibitors the basic principles are the same for plant machinery in the bottom of a pit. It's the same basic principles of getting people in, providing security, getting it all organized, promoting it. It's lots of common things. But sometimes I'm sure there's people out there who think the whole idea of organizing something that's vast with plant machinery all over the place is their thing. But also there are people who want to do the very small things, the more intimate kind of 200-person event. It's so varied and so different. The venues are different, the people are different, the AV is different. It's something for everybody.
It genuinely can be.
And also it involves PR people. And some of them are real and some of them are not. Which leads on to the story from you, Paul, about Olivia Brown.
Yes, Olivia Brown, a mythical person in AI, but the brainchild of Ferry Cazzoni, who set this up in the UK, and essentially it is an AI tool that scours. Essentially, it scours. It creates an industrialized form of PR where they use the AI tool to come up with ideas, and then the tool writes the releases, creates a list of journalists by scraping the internet, and then fires it out to them in a repeated fashion and continues to poke them with a stick and send them other messages. It's being used and it works, but the question there is, it's a bit chicken and egg. Has the media made the environment for this thing to appear? Because there's one of the challenges with AI is how does it spot the little bits of idiosyncrasy? Where does the creativity come in? Where does the lateral thinking? Where is the connecting two completely disparate dots together to make something exciting? It starts to dumb down, it starts to homogenize content, but that's not monitored at the gatekeeper end in the media channel. So publishers used to have editors and journalists and staff in their editorial departments who were quite ruthless, who would look at things and say, is this newsworthy? Why is it newsworthy? No, go away, take that away. I don't want to see that. That's rubbish. And that sharpens the skills of the PR and the comms professionals, in-house or agency, to look at, right, I'm going to submit this to that title. That title covers this kind of story. Its style, its editorial is in this direction. Therefore, whatever I send them needs to dovetail into that to talk to their audience. Whereas this carpet bombs editors that it thinks might be interested. And we all know from years of experience, you start carpet bombing editors, you start to get put into, you're filtered into that little folder in the corner, never to be seen again. It's dumbing down the entire process. And that's quite a worry, because people are looking at it and saying, hey, guess what? I can automate this whole thing. I can take I can save myself, and what was the figure they quoted? 95% of time. There we go. Olivia is the world's first real digital PR AI agent, helping PR teams, SEO teams, and market teams semi-automate their digital PR campaigns, reducing execution time by up to 95%.
In the meantime, the news outlets get so overwhelmed with PR, whether it's human-made or not, will start to employ AI to filter, to rewrite, and then publish. So at some point, no humans required, especially as you could ask AI to, based on the various subject matter in this PR, please create a picture. And next thing you know, there are no humans involved. AI is writing articles for AI, which will eventually be then consumed by AI to provide summaries of no more than one paragraph to a human who might listen to it while walking the dog.
Yeah, that's a cheery little scenario. Thanks, Bob.
Well, I thought I'd cheer everybody up with that one. So what's the real problem? Is it the case that there's so much out there that needs PR, a press release written for, that agencies are using it to help them along? Or is it the case that the media outlets are desperate to fill their pages and have something on their website or in their periodicals that they are now trying to fill those gaps? Who's lead it? You said chicken and egg, but at some point somebody said we need to generate more content or we want more content.
The arrival of the internet
Hmm.
is to blame for this.
Hmm.
In the good old days when I was first starting out in my career in public relations, we used to type press release. We didn't type them up. I'm not that old, but we used to stick them on a word processor, print them out, stick an image in, stick them in an envelope, post them out to editors, wait 6 weeks for the magazine to arrive to see if your news had been covered in that publication. And if you rang an editor up and said, "Are you going to use it?" "I was, but not now you've rung me." They did not want you. They wanted you to send the information in. We'll make a judgment with whether it goes in the mag, and off we go. Occasionally, you'd ring an editor up and say, "Look, we've got an idea for a feature. How's about this?" And you should, if you're professional enough, have a relationship with those editors that they trust what you're going to talk to them about is not nonsense. That they're going to have you're going to have that rapport, and they may take a feature. Then along trundles the internet. And people go, "Hey, guess what? We can create news portals." Now, if you've got a 48-page mag once a month, that's got a finite capacity to take editorial. And if you're on a 60-40 ad-ed split, you've got only a number of those pages can be editorial. So we were all fighting to get our content into those publications. So it had to be good. It had to be on point. It had to be sharp. It had to talk to the audience. There's a real skill in making sure that your piece of content actually stood just a little bit prouder than everybody else's. As soon as ever the internet arrives, you've got an expectation from the audience that content is going to change on a daily, hourly basis. And then everybody then cranked an e-newsletter into the back of their engine that was going to go, "We're going to send this out every Tuesday and every Thursday." Great, that's fantastic. Hell, right. So we're going to scrape our site for news. We're going to put it into an e-newsletter and send it out. We can't send the same news out. Oh, well, we'll cleverly write a little thing that says it sequences and checks, have we sent this out before? Has this been sent? No. Right, we add that in. So then you get empty newsletters flying out because there's been no news updates. So there's a hunger at the publisher's end to drive stuff in. So you create this vacuum, and PR abhors a vacuum. It's one of the laws of physics that we don't discuss very often. If there's a vacuum, we will fill it with stuff. And so then we started sending stuff in. And there's an element there that the PR industry and the PRs working in on client side, we're all as guilty that if there's a hungry publication, we will send them stuff. And to some degree, some of the quality of that stuff may not be as sharp as it used to be when you only had 48 pages. Well, 40% of 48 pages. So now that drops a bit, and those news engines soak up everything that's going in. Now you bring in AI in to find what those news engines. So let's just assume that those news engines are publishing everything they get because they're hungry for content, and they don't QA the content going in. The AI bot looks at that output and says, "This is the standard that we have to achieve, and it can be like this. If it's not at the highest, then it can be further down." Therefore, it creates more stuff to fill that space that looks like what's already out there. And that's, to me, it either benchmarks everything at a low level, or it starts a slight slide down. It becomes almost like a loop, like a feedback loop. So there's quite a lot of publications are going to fall into that trap of they're going to get less quality content. And this thing it doesn't even look for. How does it build in things like humor, pathos, argument into news? How does it turn around and say, let's pick on a publisher, the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail does this, right? So we're going to throw a contentious argument into the Daily Mail about something one of our clients may have to say that argues against the editorial standpoint on a particular issue. AI is not going to do that. It's not going to look and say, hey, we think that left-hand drive cars should be on the road in Britain instead of right-hand drive cars because we should all move over to driving on the right like the rest of the world. That argument is not going to come up because that's not going to be seen as something that you look at and say, can we have an intelligent debate on this? How do we tempt the editors into a discourse on this? That won't happen because it'll look and say, what are they saying? How do we create content that fits with that model? Not competes with it, argues with it, gives a counterpoint. How do we write something that may have an element of humor, how it might ridicule a standpoint? It might challenge it. That won't happen. Everything will just become vanilla. That's what this leads to. It leads to everything becoming bland and everything becoming the same. I think it's quite terrifying in that sense.
It is. It's also, as we know, some publications, they don't have experienced enough editors in place to help filter and guide the content to what that publication's truly about. Sometimes if on a page they may have something that's loosely connected. And of course, there's another filter in place where you have to pay some money to have your press release either copy and pasted or rewritten or turned into a feature. So there's a lot to it. And it seems a strange balance where publications are desperate for content, yet they'll put a paywall in it for the PR people and companies in general. I don't know. It's complicated.
My worry is, are we getting lazy, and are we creating journalists out of everybody? And now the computer or AI is a journalist, and now does that discredit those people who study really hard in journalism school and in uni? And then the one more other point that I was thinking about, which I always find really quite funny, is when you use AI to write an article or write something or research something about AI. Because you go into, let's say, ChatGPT, and you type in like, hey, can you tell me more about the rise of AI and blah, 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 blah. And then you think about it and you're like, AI is helping me write about AI. How trustworthy is it? And are we really creating journalists out of computers and out of everybody? And are we losing like this idea that people will go to university and like really study really hard to become really great journalists and go and find the story? And are we lazy? Are we like, we don't even want to talk to people anymore? We just like email people, get some info, get a press release, I don't know, we're lazy. We don't even want to call someone about a story or go somewhere to get a story. No, you have to stay in the office. You can't leave the office. You send an email. Okay, you could call someone, but I feel like a lot of the time we don't even want to call people. We're like, just send me everything I need and I don't want to deal with anything more.
Yeah, the thing about it is, I think there are people going through the courses, they're going through education, they're becoming on the journey of becoming a good journalist. But there's a problem. Journalists need to be paid for. This is why some of the broadsheets websites, they have the bit at the bottom. We would let you see the rest of the article, but you have to be a subscriber.
Yeah.
Now, I don't see the event industry surviving properly on subscriptions. I don't know whether it's because there's not enough people within the event industry willing to pay. If you've got the whole of the UK population deciding whether to become a subscriber or not, that's one thing. But if you've got a small subset deciding whether to become a subscriber, the journalists have to be paid to do journalistic work. Now, if you then put on top of that, we can only put if they're doing a story that involves a person, place, or location, and you want that journalistic work about that published onto the website, but that has to be paid for by the people you've just written about, and they haven't got the budget, that means your work as a journalist doesn't get seen. So we get what we pay for, I think. If the industry is not willing to pay for journalism,
They're not going to get journalism.
we're not going to get
And
journalism.
and then what? Some companies will pay someone just to use an AI tool. So is that worth that salary to just pay someone to sit there and to just like use AI to create some stories? Or then not at all. That's a waste of a salary, I would say. Or they won't hire anyone at all and just use AI to do all the content. But then who's to say that's really human content that we want to like?
Well, it won't be, because if you're using an AI to rewrite a press release, so effectively you've turned PR agents into authors of articles that have been rewritten, possibly, and
Yeah.
put onto a website. So does that mean you could actually have a one-man business that you just totally rely on PR agents to do the content for you? Because if you are,
Well,
then I don't think that's a major problem, but you've got to be transparent about these things.
Yeah.
well, it comes down to it. I mean, there's a number of issues there that pop up. One of them is, yes, you can, and if you think certain publications run on 60-70% of content derived by external sources, either internal PRs working within companies or external PR agencies working for multiple companies. And there's no reason why that output can't create a news outlet that people want to read. But the guardianship of the quality of what goes onto that news portal has to be with the publisher that sits and looks and says, I can see that has no value to my readership, bin that has. So that exclusivity, that fighting hard to get your bit of content. The article in the Press Gazette is quite interesting, because they talk about those publications that you fought to get into. They were notoriously difficult to get your coverage in. And I doubt he's listening, but if you are, Mike Fletcher, this is you. When he used to run Event magazine. Bless his cotton socks, love Mike to bits. He's a fabulous bloke and was a great editor of that magazine. But to get into Event, the bar of the quality of what you were putting to Mike had to be so high. If you wanted to get him to come to an event, if you wanted him to take a feature, if you wanted him to take news, it had to hit his standard for going in. And that really meant something. That meant that Event magazine was respected and read, and people liked it because you read it and you knew the content was editorially well selected. That will die with this. That cannot continue. It'll kill it relatively quickly. But you come down to what happens to journalists who've spent their time going through. The lack of allowing journalists to do journalistic work devalues the content. Because again, in some areas and some market sectors, if you sent a news release in about something, a particular issue or a product or a person, that should stimulate the journalist at the other end to go, I'm going to dig more into this. So here I'm launching this product, and I pick up my mug for all those listeners. This mug is unique. There's never been a mug like this. This is a special mug with special properties, and nobody else has got one. Well, the AI bots and things will kind of go, yeah, right, thanks, format, paste. So the world now believes that my mug's unique. Whereas historically, you get a journalist, any good journalist should look at it and go, unique's a very important word. That means there's only one of these in the world, this type. Is that true? Right, let's look at this. Well, no, it's a variation on a drinking vessel. So, right, what does this drink? Oh, it's got a handle. Right, okay, so you don't burn your hands holding the beakers that I'm getting like, you to get back to the old beaker people sketch. But it's we've evolved the product to do this, so it is unique. So then there's a reason for the journalist to then build a story around that and investigate and add more. But yeah, not only is Paul Richardson Inc. has launched the beaker with a handle that's now called a mug. There's another company that's launching one with two handles, so you can hold it in both hands and drink out of it, so you can have more liquid, so you can get a bigger mug. Have people got the capacity to drink 3 liters of tea in one mug? So there's, you ask those questions and you look and you dig and you find these things out, and that's what makes things readable. It stops being puffery passed off as journalism, which is essentially what it is, and puffery being the term is just promotional items. Just got one quick thing. I know Bob wants to jump in, but if you are putting content onto onto a platform and you're paying for the privilege of doing it, if you're paying per insertion, you need to have the Advertising Standards Authority in the UK insists that you put this is promotional material. So I go to a portal, I say I'm paying you £100 for this article to go into that publication. That's advertorial. That is not news and needs to be flagged as such, because that is an advert. That is not editorial. And there's some strict guidelines on how that works. And I'm not sure all publishers are actually paying close attention to that.
Yeah, I've listening to that is three things on what I've pulled out, and we should finish with this, I guess, with your feedback anyway. So we're coming up to the end of 2025. I don't really want to get into sort of trends for next year. It's a bit too early for that. I'm not even going to mention the C word that happens in December. It's far too early for that. But could you imagine in next year, 2026, we're going to see a change within the publications? The ones who could provide quality content, relevant content, and well-researched brackets journalistic style content, are these three things going to make those publications stand above the rest and may survive the next few years?
The success and survival is obviously absolutely and totally economic, isn't it? It's can these things stay alive and active because they have a cost overhead that must be met?
Well, whatever funding model they have, if we've got AI coming along providing beige content, for lack of a better word, where it all seems the same. I mean, yeah, there's not, from a PR piece point of view, I mean, it's got one handle or three handles, it's still a mug. But if someone's actually going to do the research and provide relevant and quality work to say who was behind the mug, how long that company's been around, who's worked there, is it a family business? When you bring out the human side, that you can only do with people who are willing to do the research, journalistic style, they will survive because they'll get the attention, they'll get the eyeballs, where beige content generated by AI, I'm not going to use the word AI slop because that's not a great term to say about AI in general, because sometimes they do produce really interesting reports. But if it's all the same, you know, company X has produced a three-handle mug. Yeah, all the sites can do that.
I think we need to, this may sound harsh, but we need to reject AI and we need to go back to the old school ways of calling people, going to talk to people, and then we can go back to having really high quality content. Or at least we need to understand that AI is just a tool, not everything. We can't keep giving it power, and I think in order to have that high quality content, we need to either reject AI, go back to the old school ways of talking to people and communicating personally, or understand that it's just a tool. I'm sure that there are some journalists who use it as a tool, who are like, okay, just check some details for me, but then they go and check themselves as well. But I'm sure that there are also other people who just go, write a book for me or write an article for me, and they copy and paste. And I think in order for it to work, in order for us to still stay relevant or to have really good content and relatable content, we need to just use it as a helper, not as everything, not to keep giving it the power, and to give power to the humans, to the people with opinions, with intelligence, to then just use it really kind of like the last resort, not the first resort.
It should be the
Yeah.
tool that helps you get towards the final content,
Yeah.
not the final
Yeah.
content itself.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think. Yeah.
Great point. Great point.
I've got Gemini open in front of me at the moment, and if I suddenly disappear offline and my screen goes off, you'll know that Google's got to me. But on the bottom of the screen of Gemini, and it's on ChatGPT and everything else, it says Gemini can make mistakes, including about people, so double check it. People are relying on a source that says, "Hey, folks, I get it wrong." Not only do I get it wrong, I may also go and get other people's material and post it into whatever I'm doing for you. So you might get into trouble for plagiarism. So yes, it's seen as a panacea for so many people, and it really is. It had to have a big health and safety warning on it saying treat this with extreme caution.
Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously there's a sustainability aspect of it too, where it's like, well, it's actually not even good to be using AI. So like I did find that too. I found it like when I think when I said before, when it becomes the first resort, not the last resort. Because I think at the start we were like, right, let me sit down, let me do this. And then if I need some help, I will turn to it. But I feel like if you use it so much, then you get into this, because it happened to me too. And I had to break free from it for a bit, because then you start into this mindset of, well, let me start with AI, and then if it doesn't work, then I'll do it myself. Whereas I think we need to still keep to the I will do it myself first, and I will give it my all, and I will sit down and brainstorm and do everything, and then maybe I will just check it with AI and maybe get some more ideas. But I'm not going to start with AI, and then if AI fails, I'll go to my own ideas.
A lovely little example of how it can fall on its beautifully, perfectly formed little face is because we're going to we're exhibiting at Event Tech Live in a few weeks' time. We've got invitations geared up, ready to go out to a load of contacts in the London area to say, come to Excel and see us on the stand and blah, 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 part of our campaign. Shh, can't tell you yet, it's a secret, but it's going to be quite a good one. And what I did was, obviously, looking for the quick fix, I said, right, here's a list of web addresses. I need to send a postal invitation to these, to the companies whose web address this is. Please tabulate against the company name, the web address, and the physical address where we can send this mail shot, thinking, right, got that, nailed that. This is something it can do well. Now, remarkably, a lot of these companies seem to be working out of 124 City Road, London. Over half of them. And I started looking, I thought, well, I've heard of shared workspace, but this is something else. All these companies in one building. 124 City Road is Company's House. The AI bot has run off and gone, right, I'll go and look at the website. Oh, yeah, company registered at Company's House, 124 City Road, London. Oh, and so is this one, and so is this one. So if I trusted AI implicitly, I would print off 150 labels, and Company's House would probably send somebody up here to break my knees because they've just been buried in invitations to an event that none of them are going to go to. Because all it is where but that's the point. The point I'm trying to make is it's error prone. It's doing what it's trying to do what I've asked it to do. But in that request, what I haven't done is say exclude registered officers, exclude Company's House, exclude. So by the time I've spent writing this 42-page prompt that rules out all the keep it in, keep it out kind of stuff, it would have been as quick for me to look down the phone book and go, yeah, that's where that goes, that's where that goes. That's it, like I say, treat with caution. It needs it written in big blooming letters
Yeah, that's
across
the
it.
thing. By the time you've gone through it and you've double checked and verified and made the corrections, you might as well just ruin it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You start with, that's the problem with if you start with AI. You spend like it's happened to me, 2 hours on like asking it like lots of questions and then it doesn't get it. And then you keep asking, 2 hours go by. You totally could have like be finished by now if you just started doing it yourself from the beginning, and not trust, because you have to check, that's another 2 hours. So you really have to be careful, because sometimes it gives you like random answers that you didn't even request, and then you go, hang on, I don't remember telling you about this, why did you include it? And then it goes, oh, sorry, my mistake. Yeah, you are right. It's not even included or doesn't even exist. Or you ask it for UK places and it gives you international places. And you're like, could you please check that again?
Yeah, I think we're going to bring this to a close, because I don't want people feeling all depressed about all the work they've been doing with AI and now realizing they've made a huge mistake and having to do it all over again. AI is a great tool. Keep it as a tool. It's not the end point. It's the beginning of your research, of your fact finding. And even then, you've got to double check those facts are correct. So yes, well, we're coming to the end. Thank you both for being part of today. I think we've had a truly good discussion. Good talk, and explored quite a few issues here and there.
Thank you so much for having us.
And yes, if any listener has any feedback they would like to share, please do. I'll put all the links to the news stories in the show notes, including where you can donate to my fabulous 20-kilometer walk around Battersea for the support of hospitality action. Yeah, so thank you both again, and until next time. This Week in Events is a production for the EPN Journal podcast. Huge thanks to our patrons, partners and industry friends for helping to make this possible. Details of how you can be a patron are in the show notes and on the EPN Journal website. Thanks for listening.